In the modern world today, there's what is called Dutch disease. Those countries who are endowed with natural resources are normally not creative. You don't build prosperous societies.
From those,
it leads to a high level of laziness.
Congo and corruption.
Look at Nigeria's economic growth when we're running regional government. And look at from after the Civil War, what was they running this quasi-unitary system? Nigeria has not experienced that same growth again.
True.
Nsukka, Ife, ABU were built from agriculture. We have not come back to it because the regions had, to an extent, decent powers.
Yeah.
The eastern region, where I come from, used to collect a lot of royalties from their coal before crude oil became the main thing. And if you look at the south very well now, the south that is the most endowed part in
is the most impoverished.
Yes, it's the most impoverished in the south today, which goes back to give credence to that Dutch disease.
Yes.
If you look at National Bureau of Statistics indexes, the south is the poorest part of the south.
Of course.
Good.
I agree with you on that.
Why? Because they are the most endowed with crude oil. They collect 13% that nobody knows what they are doing with it.
But it doesn't even trickle down to
nobody knows what they are doing with it. Go and read the book, the first Vice Chancellor of the University of Ibadan, Professor Kenneth Onwuka-Dike. His PhD thesis was on the Niger Delta. I think the Niger Delta has always been a society that has been transactional. Do you know why? They were by the coastline, they were the slave merchants. So if you look at it, I read that book and I was saying, wow, the tragedy of the Niger Delta. One of the most prominent Igbo son who was a slave, Jaja, was in Bonny. He became so rich, wanted to become king of Bonny. Bonny refused him to become king. He now moved to a desolate island, Opobo, and about 13 houses from Bonny came with him. Guess what I read recently? Jaja too also became a slave
merchant.
So
you're saying something about Nana of Shekiri.
Nana of Shekiri too was also a slave
merchant himself.
So because they have this transactional nature, so how does it affect the economy?
Besides, your orientation trickles down. Look at me now. I'm Igbo. We were not slave dealers. We till the land. I don't look for whom I will hijack and make money from.
So I think the solution of that is
now God forgive me, I'm on camera. The average Delta politician always has that hijack
about himself
mentality. I don't enter, make a hijack.
And people don't say anything bad in that because they feel
it's normal.
When it's their time, they do the same.
It's normal.
Okay,
but so the tragedy of everything, that might never be their time.
Yes. So that individual thinking has ruined the prospects and the prosperity.
I will tell you something now. When I was growing up, my village school, primary school, was built by my community. My secondary school was built by my community. Nobody waited for the government. They will hear that Umweze has a school, they have built a school. Umodis have built their own school. And we don't have school. We'll start collecting taxes ourselves. So our community will have that prestige that will have a primary school.
And that goes back to what we're saying about every state trying to
develop themselves. So I'll give you an example. You know a place called Agbo Palace in Lagos. Agbo Palace way and the environment is dominated by Igbo people. If you look to the other side where we have the Yorubas, look at the development there. So Okota area of it, where they have more of the Yoruba people, you'll see that Igbo people have this penchant to develop where they stay. They don't want to wait for government.
True.
You know why that is? So when you look for comfort and you can't find it from the government, you turn to yourself. So you are your own local government. You become your own security CSO. You become your water resources corporation. You become your Ikeja DC or whatever. You become your own road construction worker. When my parents built their house, they live among Yoruba people. And before my father really fell sick, he galvanized people together and they started paying development fee. But it took so much to even get people to bring out money. Now he cannot pursue the course again, and development has stalled. I used to tell him, I said, if you build around Igbo people, Oh my goodness. You won't be in this situation. And then by now, this place will be small London. If you now trickle down government to the local government,
Yes.
from the local to state, and you give them that autonomy, I hope that this local government autonomy that we now have will work. But if it does work, you will see that governance actually begins from bottom upward, not upward downward.
If it's nice saying that every state has their own autonomy to do whatever, do you think it will work? It might work in the instance
Let me tell you something. There's a lot.
But will it work in other
It will work
regions?
because competition will make other people want to do better.
One of my most illuminating conversations was with a retired executive director in NEPA. My ex-girlfriend who lives in America, her daughter was in school here. So when each time she's coming back from America, I pick her and drop her at her uncle's house in Lekki. That's the retired executive director. So one evening, the man sat me down and asked me, what do I feel about Nnamdi Kanu? I condemned Nnamdi Kanu. Do you know why? I told him that the way he talks, that it is endangering the Igbos' lives who live outside. You are busy abusing other ethnic groups on social media. You don't know what that one Yoruba man now will listen to what he said and see me and hit me. He said that the Igbos, that when he was a little boy, his father had a lot of wives and children. The yield from the soil could not sustain them. So they started going as far as Eche. I don't know whether you know where Eche is. Ikwere land. To higher land. And when they harvest, they share the proceeds with the land owners and come back to feed the home front. So the Igbos are not the people that are... The Igbo man is not smarter than any other person. But he's the ethnic group that maybe doesn't have all the advantages other ethnic groups have. So it makes them creative. There's nobody that is smart. What made the Jews smart today is that they didn't have all these advantages. They had to think out of the box.
What of the United Kingdom?
Today now, they are crying that the Asians have taken over their land. Why? And another thing again, there's another thing again I want people to know. If your village develops or becomes attractive, a lot of strangers will come in.
Investment will come.
You will sell land. As you're selling that land and collect that money, you're also losing grip on the political authority in that place.
Exactly.
Now, I'll give you an example. Aba has two local governments. Aba North, Aba South. The Aba is owned by the Ngwa people, but no Ngwa man can become chairman of Aba North or Aba South. Why? The strangers are more than them. Likewise in Owerri. Likewise in Onitsha.
Even if you take your mind back to the Just Crisis, you grew up in the North, right?
No, I schooled in the North.
Okay. You would know that the reason why they had that Just Crisis was because strangers, or let me call them migrants, took over the main Just Township.
Yes.
The indigenous lost grip.
Yes.
And then those strangers became the political leaders.
Yes.
When the indigenous woke up, it was too late. So they had to start killing and maiming just to try and get power back. But let's not forget what we are discussing.